All right, Brent Porcia, topvelocity.net. I'm doing a pitch analysis here of Michael. Going to pair him up with Shunsuke. He's a Japanese. I don't know if he's Japanese. He's an Asian sidearm pitcher or sub pitcher. So that would work with Michael, who's a sub guy. So let's take Michael here into his leg lift. Take Shunsuke to his leg lift. Okay, kind of a similar move for both of them. This is not a great side angle of Shunsuke, so we can't really see where he is as far as his momentum, but we'll just take it as they're in a similar position. Lift legs pulling away from their front hip, which is leading towards the target. And let's see where they go from here. Let's take Michael into his load. So you can see his lift legs coming down, not a lot of forward momentum at this point. His lift leg breaks his front knee here, and he's starting to crouch over. Let's watch Shunsuke here. Kind of the same thing, even more of a crouch. Lift leg stays closed though a little bit longer. You can see here as he starts to move towards the plate, he keeps the lift leg really close. He's dipping his shoulders hard because these are sub guys, so they've got to get down close to the ground because that's where their release point is. But notice how he's keeping his foot closed until he starts to reach out and complete his stride and open up and before he drives. So I would advise Michael, I would advise you to stay still closed at this point. Also take an approach to where you want to build flexion through this drive leg and lower your shoulders to the ground. Also notice here how he's over rotating closed. This is key. I see a lot of high velocity sub guys do this because it's really hard when you're leaning forward to create hip to shoulder separation. That's the biggest challenge of sub guys, and that's usually what puts them in a low velocity category. But this Shunsuke is still able to generate high velocities because he can get good hip shoulder separation. So he has to start with his shoulders over closed to give him some range of motion to work with, because when he starts to drive, he also really quickly wants to throw because gravity's pulling his arm down. So you can see when you lean forward, gravity makes your arm want to go. So he leans forward and turns and almost reaches back so that arm isn't being pulled down so much by gravity. Okay, so let's take you forward. So you start to bring your force vector down, which you can see Shunsuke here as his down because he's going to drive through this drive leg. You bring yours down, but the problem is it's your knees moving away from your back hip. If we took Shunsuke here, we could see that his hip to knee to ankle would be all pretty much together, bearing the load of his body because it's the only weight, it's the only part of the body supporting itself. Right here with Michael, there's too much pressure pushing into your knee, which is going to cause your leg to collapse, which we see here. It just collapses as you land. And notice as well, at this point when you land, you're very upright. You're almost in a more over the top delivery at this point. Watch Shunsuke. Now he opens the front side, takes the force vector down even more, but the hips are moving with it. Look, he stays rotated close, arm up, then he goes into extension. So look at that knee extension or that drive leg extension or triple extension before he lands. And notice right when he hits that extension, his arm then starts to throw, but at that point it's still back towards second base. So we have hip to shoulder separation. We have these hips pointing forward and we have these shoulders closed. He never would have gotten there if he wouldn't have created this kind of separation initially. If he wouldn't have put his shoulders in this angle by reaching back, that's so when the hip does drive through, so when this hip does come through and those shoulders go parallel with the ground, then the hips are open and their shoulders closed and he has torque in his body, which we see here. That's the only way a sub guy is going to create separation, because you can see you hit, You don't drive your back leg through, you just collapse your back leg so your hips come through with your arm. So you can see your arm coming through and your hips coming through with it. And you're definitely more sidearm here. I mean, I guess compared to Sensuke, more sidearm than sub, because look, I guess we don't get to see that too much with him. Let's see if we can take him through another one. Yeah, it's not really showing it, but he's going to be somewhere down here in this region, because look how much more tilted forward he is at release. So I would learn from this. I would ultimately, because these guys are the best at being high velocity sub pitchers, I would get my torso forward and I would get my shoulders rotated close with my arm up to not let gravity take it early. And I would work just like a high velocity pitcher to stay closed on the front side, get linear on the drive side, triple extend before I land, and ultimately create that separation, right, like this. You can see really well here where the shoulders are still pointing back to second base when my back hip is pushed all the way forward. Then you're going to have a ton of torque in your body, and you're going to put, you know, it's so much easier to get external rotation down here than up over your head. So you're going to get external rotation. You're just, Michael, you're not creating any torque because you have a collapsing back leg, not a driving back leg, and you're not putting your arms in, or when you at front foot strike, you're cocked in that overhand throwing position, which makes you get more, not as low. These guys find it more effective lower to the ground because these hitters never see the ball come out in that position. So I would ultimately take these tips on creating more shoulder separation because that's going to be key to you increasing pitching velocity. So you got to keep, from the beginning, as you're striding, you got to keep these hips moving forward and not opening this front leg until just before you're about to drive. So look, his foot is closed here. You should still be closed here because that's causing your drive leg to collapse because you're opening your front leg. This knee follows this knee. This knee opens, this one rolls down, and it's going to collapse if you're not in a good position to drive at that point. So you want to stay closed until just before front foot strike. You want to still hit triple extension before front foot strike, and you want your shoulders to react later. So you want to stay over rotated and back. So when they do start to go with your hips, they're way behind and you get more torque in the body. Alright, hope that helps. I don't do a lot of sub analysis, but apologize for being so late on this one. Just went through the flu and been running camps and everything. So hope this helps and hope this gives you something to continue to work for.